Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. My name is Monica and today I'm going to be doing 3 looks, swatches, and a full review of the new ABH Norvina Pro Palette. This is actually volume number 5. I can't believe there's already 5 out already. I was sent this in PR and it looks like this is, let me open it up, supposed to be a replacement for their original Norvina palette. This is the original palette right here, and this is the new palette right here, and unfortunately it sounds like they're discontinuing this original palette, which, there it is. But I really wanted to test this palette, thoroughly test it out, see how it works, what the formula is like, and compare it to the original palette. So I've got side-by-side swatches, I've got some looks for you, and I've got a lot of thoughts. So let's go ahead and jump in. This is going to be a longer video, but I will have timestamps down below if you want to skip to any of the looks, the swatches, the side-by-side swatches, or my final thoughts. Like I mentioned briefly before, I did receive this palette in PR through Influenster, so I did not have to pay for this one, but I did buy the original palette. This one I believe I bought from Sephora, like right around the time it originally came out. So I've had it for a while, but I love this original palette. I really like the color story, and this is the original, really pigmented, creamy, like ABH formula. And it's honestly for that reason, because it's that original formula, is why I love this so much, even though I'm not, just kind of crazy to say now, since I spent so long working on the Lila palette for my Pan That palette. But when I picked this up, I was not a fan of purple. I rarely used purple, but I loved the ABH formula so much that whenever they came out with a new palette like this, I kind of jumped on it before they went crazy with palette releases, Norvina. But I love this palette, and I still have it in my collection, and I honestly, we'll get to my final thoughts at the end, but I do still think this is the better value. Now this palette, right off the bat, it's huge. You'll see how it is compared to my head. It is very big. Personal pet peeve, I don't like having to open it. Like, it is a little tough to open, but that's just like honestly a little pet peeve of mine, and I do chip my nails trying to get it open. It's got a nice big mirror, so if you want to travel with this, it'd probably not be bad because it is a hard shell case and a really nice big mirror, and it does stand up on its own, so if you set this on your vanity, you could do your makeup right in front of it. And this is the color story. To me, this is essentially just the original palette with a bunch of filler shades. I personally don't think you need this many shades in this big of a palette. I don't like that ABH has gotten bigger and bigger with their palettes. The same with ColourPop has gotten bigger and bigger with their palettes. To be quite frank, ABH had like the perfect formula and the perfect palette, like shape and size. The only thing was the fuzzy packaging. Like, people really didn't like that because it got pretty dirty, but I have to say the purple hides the stains. So while it does get a little dirty, not as dirty as like Modern Renaissance got. Yeah, I have to say I had very high expectations because I went into this not expecting the original formula, because I did see reviews on YouTube of like the first 3 volumes of these big Norvina palettes that came out, and the first complaints were that it was not the original ABH formula, which everyone expected and hoped for in these bigger palettes. And with the bigger palettes comes a bigger price tag. This is like $65 when these originally they run for $42. So let's go ahead and jump into some looks I did of this palette, along with swatches of this palette, the original palette, and then comparison swatches. So those are all of my looks and those swatches. Overall, I think that this palette, it's not terrible. To be quite frank, it's better than a lot of like other palettes I've tried before, but it's not, like, to me, this didn't feel like an ABH palette. It's not that original formula, which really like discounts this for me. Like if this had been a big palette of like the original formula, I might have been sold, but it's not. It's just not. And so I've got a few other pros and cons. So let's just go through my pros and cons overall for this palette. The two big pros, the first one is, I just said the color story is really nice. You know, it's got a decent color story. I do think there's too many shades. Like this could definitely get pared down, but I do like the tones of the shades in here. And it's got a very nice like flow to the palette. The other pro is that at least the formula is like workable. I wrote down it's a decent formula because I was kind of honestly seeing the bad reviews the first few palettes got. I was kind of expecting it to be a hot mess, but no, it is a workable formula and you can get some really, really nice looks out of it. Now, is it $65 worth of nice looks? Debatable. All right, let's get to the cons. Let's get my petty cons out of the way. First, the palette is just way too big. This palette is way too big and it's got a nice heft to it. It's not too heavy. I hate that I have to open it like this. That's just my petty cons. And the next large con that I mentioned several times, it's not the original ABH formula. And because of that, you know, the original ABH formula is so pigmented that you really only need to go dip a little bit, and then you can like do a whole eye, you know, like Subculture, like the original Norvina, like Modern Renaissance. You don't need a lot of product. It's not like that here. You need a decent amount of product. It's not like the original formula where I could tap my brush once and have enough product to do my whole eye. Right? So I did find myself having to build up a couple of these shades, especially, I noticed like the lighter transition shades, I had to build these up quite a bit just to get like a nice transition, and I'm pale as the wallpaper, you know, I'm very, very pale. So if I had to build those up, I don't know how that would work really well on different skin tones. Another not petty con, but another con, there's a chunky glitter right here. The shade right here is a pressed glitter. I hate it. I don't like the glitter. It doesn't look nice. It's a pain to put on. It's a pain to take off. And I didn't realize how chunky and glittery it was. It got into my eye and it hurt it hurt really bad. So I don't like that at all. Honestly, if I could, I would pop it out, but also none of the shades are removable. Also, I don't know if any of these shades are removable. I know there's no holes in the back, kind of like some Natasha palette. So I don't know if you can go in here with a magnet, but yeah. If I could take it out, I'd probably just pop out that glitter shade because I'm not a fan at all. So overall, I just think this palette is too big. It's not the original formula, and I was kind of expecting a bit more. If they had cut this palette like in half, like if you had done like 3 of those rows, if you had made this the size of a Natasha Denona like midi, you know, like the $65 ones, and kept like the great color story, because you really don't need all of these shades. This is a lot of shades. If you had pared it down, this probably would have been a really good palette. I don't know why they had to make them this big. It's a lot of shades. I think if you have a decent sized makeup collection, you have some palettes that you already like, I really don't think this is needed. Personally, the way I see these palettes are like great like intro palettes. I think for someone who is getting into makeup, maybe they have some drugstore products and they're looking for like their first higher end palette, I think this would be great for that kind of person. The one who's looking to expand their makeup collection or try their hand at different formulas, possibly for the first time in the mid-range to higher end range. But for experienced makeup users, honestly, I would just say stick to your ABH palettes, your original ABH palettes. Speaking of the original ABH palettes, if you gave me the choice between that Pro palette and this one, I would pick this one. And if I had timed this video right, the day this video goes live, this palette is on sale at Ulta for half off. Yes, unfortunately, I do think they are discontinuing this palette. I remember I mentioned this palette a few months ago and someone said it was discontinued, but I saw it at my local Ulta, so I was like, oh, I don't know. But I don't think this is available on Sephora anymore, and I don't see it anywhere else, I think, other than Ulta. And this is the first time I think I've seen an ABH palette go half off during a 21 Days of Beauty sale. So that tells me they're probably going to discontinue this soon now that they have the new Pro palette out. So they really don't need, from a brand standpoint, they don't need both of these palettes. So I think they're going to get rid of this, which is a damn shame because I love this palette and I think this one is leagues better. So if you are at all interested in this palette, please, today at Ulta, Ulta online. Pick it up for the $22.50. It is half off, and enjoy, because I don't think this palette is going to be around much longer. So there we have it. That's my full review and my thoughts. Let me know down below what you think of the big Norvina Pro palettes from ABH, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.